All right. I think we are live now. So,
Right.
welcome everyone. My name is Jordan Bain, and this is a podcast called Unveiling. My guest today is Rush Dorsett. She is a Modern Mystery School initiate as well. I'm a certified guide and healer, teacher, and Universal Kabbalah instructor with the Modern Mystery School. And Rush actually just went to Healers Academy and became a certified life activation practitioner less than 4 or 5 days ago.
Yep.
So, welcome on the show, Rush. It's really great to have you here. And, I'd love to hear you say a little bit about yourself as well, and then we'll dive right in.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for
So, a
being
little
on.
bit about me. I am a singer and an entrepreneur. I have an online business called Embodied Voice Coaching, and I support people in awakening their authentic voice and freeing their self expression and enjoying singing. So, that's a little bit about me. And I found the mystery school about a year ago now. That's when I
Mhm,
got my first life activation, which we'll talk more about probably in this session. Yeah.
mhm. Wonderful, great. So, when Rush and I first met, and she got initiated back in January of this year, one of the first things that you said to me was, why don't more people know about the mystery school? Like, how come this isn't something I heard of before? And you'd heard of it months before, but why isn't it something we heard of in high school? Why isn't it something that was a part of college? How can I learn more about it? How can more people know about this work, and really be connected um, to a greater understanding of what the mysteries are and what the mystery school is? So a few months ago, we got together and came up with different questions that you would love to have, asked or have heard asked or answered maybe, when you first came to the school and when you first found this work, and that you felt that that would be really helpful for you and then other people who are finding this work. So we're going to cover some of those questions today, and these conversations are always really natural and organic. So um, whatever comes up during this conversation, um, we may sort of go back and forth, and let's see what comes out. So you can really start with asking anything, Rush, whatever is top of your mind and comes to you.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, so many questions. Well, yes, I mean, just to echo exactly what you said, my intention for the questions really is to think about where I was before I found the mystery school and thinking, well, I would have loved to have known about this earlier in my path.
Hmm.
And I feel so lucky and privileged that I met Ruthie, a friend of ours, who really referred me to the mystery school, and it has completely changed my life. And so I've been thinking about my friends and colleagues and people who this could make a massive difference for, and like how would they know about it? So I would just love to start with just starting from what exactly is the mystery school. I've been telling a couple of people about it, and their interest is piqued, but it's how do you explain something that's so ancient and from such an amazing lineage? How would you describe it?
Yeah, and that's one of those questions that if we had 5 podcasts in a row, we couldn't really
Yeah.
fully unpack. But in explaining the mystery school to people, and that quintessential question, well, what is it? Is people ask me like, can I see a movie about it? Can I read a book about it? And in a certain sense, there are books and movies that would be about initiation in certain ways, metaphors and stories and mythology that relates to what it means to be initiated or the path of initiation that we work with in the mystery school. And yet, and many of those stories are, stories of heroes and heroines and people who have done great deeds and things in mythology that we look to, beings that we look to as like gods and goddesses, or uh, figures that have done amazing, incredible things in their lives. And yet there's not really any one specific source or book or movie or story we could say that like, oh, that's about the mystery school. Because the mysteries that we work with in the mystery school are really the mysteries of life and death and love and rebirth, and that's not something that you put into words very easily. So when people ask me, well, what is the mystery school, I always tailor that to, and this is a fun challenge with this podcast, I always tailor that to what's going on in that person's life. So if I'm sitting down with you one on one and you ask me a question like, well, what is the mystery school? I'm going to draw out of you where you're at in your life, and then I'm going to reply based on that, because the mystery school, in its essence, meets each student where that student is at. And it is a system for being able to traverse the distance from where you are, where I am as a person today, finding the school like when I found it 15 years ago, and going toward my destiny. So it's a series of steps, initiations, trainings, teachings, and ultimately it's about life and learning to live your life at higher and higher levels of service, of um, spiritual connection, of groundedness, of functionality, of being able to stay on track with what you really need to be doing in your life to accomplish the things that you really came here to do as a human being. And those things are worldly human things. And that's very important because the mystery school is a spiritual system, but it's extremely grounded and keeps a person's feet on the ground while they're exploring the universe inside themselves and the universe around themselves. So it's a system of being able to walk the path of yourself toward a higher destiny and never give up on yourself. That's not easy. It's one of the hardest things you could ever do. In fact, we'd say it's probably the hardest path you could walk on the planet as you go higher and higher in different levels of initiation, because the accountability required to be honest with yourself, to be on track with yourself, to see yourself, to know yourself. Those words, know thyself, are written over the doors metaphorically of all the ancient mysteries. And when you enter into the modern mystery school the way that we teach it today, uh, there's a series of initiations. There's a series of steps that everybody takes, and they are yet not cookie cutter at all, because the initiation is going to meet you exactly where you're at, and it's going to show you what's really going on within your subconscious, within your higher consciousness. And the mystery school is an amazing path for blending together what's going on down below in the subconscious mind and what's coming in from your true self, and bringing those two realities together to meet in the middle in your human life. And so the things that are your highest truths and your highest desires and dreams and destiny and all of that come together with the reality of your subconscious mind, your past, your programs, your wounding, the things within you that perhaps, like the parts of ourselves that we could say are not working as well as we would like them to, or are challenges or stopping points for us. And being human, we all have some of that. Some people have a lot of that, like they came from very traumatic lives and backgrounds, and shattered families and emotional states, or drug use, or any number of different things that can be very difficult challenges filled with suffering in life. To people who have had easier lives, or they haven't suffered that much, and so everyone comes from a different background, but that's this sort of substance that we start with in our subconscious psyche. And the path of initiation brings that shadow work, that deeper material of what's really going on in me subconsciously that I don't even know about right now, that is holding me back from who I really am. This is why personal development has been so big in the last, especially 10, 15 years, but really has been a growing industry for 20 or 30 years now or more. And there has never really ceased to be a thing on the planet. People have always sought for systems that they could grow toward their greater potential with. And we've just seen more and more and more of that over the last few decades. Because we're called to something higher. We're called to something greater than who and what we really are. So the mystery school gives a really reliable set of steps to move, consistently. Almost, we say the mystery school is almost like a science, because although there's these stages of initiation and they meet you where you're at, there really is very based on the subjective reality going on inside of you, and the foundations of your character and the personality that you have. There's very specific things that you're going to have to face to go through in yourself in order to get to where you really want to go. And the steps of initiation in the mystery school provide you with the tools. They provide you with the empowerment, the inner strength and contact with yourself and with the greater forces of the universe and God or source or whatever you'd like to call that, to really make that journey. So that's a super short answer, even though it sounds really long, as to what the mystery school is.
Wow. So, what exactly is initiation? So, it sounds like initiation is that step that helps you be on your path of your highest self, of your soul's destiny, and however you want to word that.
Yeah,
How would you describe an initiation?
for sure. The word initiation means to enter into. and is associated with beginnings. So an initiation in life, not just in the mystery school, but initiation in life is to enter into a new phase or a new way of being or a new way of experiencing. And the initiations in the mystery school, there's sort of three primary pathways within the mystery school. The first of those that everyone starts with is a path of healing. And healing means to become whole and really to become your true self. So the initiations that we offer in the school start out with the healing path, or sometimes called the healer's path, because that's where everyone needs to begin, is with knowing themselves, loving themselves, becoming a more whole, integrated, unified person. The other two pathways are the path of the warrior, the spiritual warrior who faces their negative ego, who faces their own darkness, their own shadows, and really chooses victory and chooses to overcome the inherent negativity or the human condition, if you will, of what it means to have a physical body and to have a human personality and to have all the different things that we're not always so proud of in ourselves, if you would, like the human like character flaws, and to face those in ourselves and to really heal them. So the path of the warrior is also a healing path, but it's much more intensive because you're always confronting your own negative ego and you're learning to sort of say no to the things that don't really serve you in your life. Of course, first you have to learn what you're saying yes to, and that's the healer path. So you're saying yes to your true self, yes to the light, yes to service, yes to your destiny, yes to God, goddess, or source. And then you're saying no to the things that are not serving you in your life. And it's not a simple thing, right? I mean, if it was as simple in life as just saying, well, this is the good side of me and this is the bad side, and I'm going to say yes to this and no to this, there'd be absolutely no need for a mystery school. I mean, it would be a ridiculously easy planet to live on. Everyone would have joy in their life, because anytime you saw something that didn't work well for you, just be like, no thanks, I don't want to do that. And then, oh, great, now it's over because I said no thanks. So obviously it's not so simple. That's it doesn't really work like that. And the path that binds these two other paths together is really the path of a Kabbalist, or the path of Kabbalah. And that is, we'll probably have many podcasts where we talk just about that. But in Kabbalah, we weave together the self-healing and being a warrior, being able to stand up to your own darkness and negativity, as well as being able to say yes to and embrace your own light. So the Kabbalist does both of those things and weaves them together in what we would call like the middle pillar, or the path of the self. So I'm not even sure if I totally remember your original question
Yeah.
with this, or if you do either.
Amazing. It
But
was
that's a little bit about initiation and
yes.
what initiation is. I'm not sure if I totally answered though, what is it? I'm talking about these pathways and how they relate to us and some of the effects of them. But initiation itself, to be really, really basic, is the initiation you did earlier this year it's a 2-day class. And in that 2-day class, there's certain keys for successful living that are handed down. And that's not something we can hand down on a video conference call like this. We can do an interview. We can sometimes teach some meditation classes online, but pretty much everything in the school, with the exception of the things I just mentioned, really needs to be done in person, because there's so much to what we're doing in the mystery school that's actually working directly with energy. And energy is infinite and spiritual and all those things, but energy also is very physical, and we are physical beings. And so our physical energy structure, our aura, things that are related to our soul, they're here and they're present right now in our bodies. That stuff doesn't really translate through a computer screen. It doesn't really translate online or through the phone. So the mysteries are really open in person, and the person who's initiating you would be called your guide. And that guide has been highly trained and trained and trained and trained and initiated and then certified to be able to pass down those keys into your energetic structure that awaken certain gateways of your soul. And those gateways of your soul, once they're opened with those special keys during those 2 days, the initiation comes at the end, and it looks like getting knighted, like getting hit on the shoulders and the head with a sword. But anyone can take a sword and hit someone else on the shoulders and the head and say Shazam, wow. But there's something special about the lineage, that when you are initiated and that sword touches your shoulders and head, it's cutting away a certain veil, and you start to see yourself in a whole new way, and you start to live your life in a whole new way. And a barrier is permanently removed between you and your higher self. And a new level of permanent contact is established between your human personality, your soul, your higher self, and your infinite self, or your divine self, or your eternal self, whatever you want to call that, so that many more levels of you become active in your human life. We're not like giving you a soul or giving you a spirit. It doesn't. That's a ridiculous concept that we would, like, you are already perfect. So the path of initiation works with what you already really are, and yet it brings that much more into your physical life, so that that can be more of the dominating force in your personality, instead of your programs, instead of where you went to school, or who your parents were, or the beliefs that you have in your mind, or I'm a person who thinks this way, or I have this religious understanding, or I have this intellectual concept or this philosophy on life. Initiation starts to bring a person into integration, and it starts to bring them into their heart. It starts to bring them into reality, so that they can apprehend all the subjects of their senses with their heart, with their soul, with their true self. And however you want to call that, if you want to say the gateways of their soul are more open to perceive the truth of themselves, let's call it that. If you want to say that the person has more knowledge of their divine self, we can call it that. The consequences of it are far-reaching in a person's life, and often aren't understood for many, many years.
Yes. And you mentioned earlier that it's like a science, which I find so fascinating, and something that I found so distinct from other schools of, personal development and other things that are out there.
Yeah.
Can you describe a little bit more as to, how are these keys that are offered and handed down? How is that like a science, and where does this lineage even come from?
Really deep question. So, I would say probably for the first 5 years that I started doing this work, I didn't really understand how it could be a system. When I first heard, oh, we're handing down these keys, this is an ancient lineage, I was like, these guys are just really good at marketing. They have some cool terms I haven't heard before in terms of how to make something sound good and make it stand out. And they've got their market niche really down. And I was just really sort of skeptical and negative about stuff like that, because I'd already studied a lot of other spiritual systems, and I heard a lot of claims. And I was just like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. You say these things, your class material has this content in it. Okay, sure. But something started kind of proving itself to me over time with the school, with the lineage. So when I went to receive a certain level of initiation, it was undeniable that for weeks and months after that, I became much more aware of myself. It wasn't something like, oh, well, I heard this concept in a seminar, and then I reflected on it for a long time, and I did a lot of journaling about it, and then I came to a new conclusion, and then now I've decided to like do affirmations on it, and that's my new way of life. There was this sort of slow, inexorable pull into my truth that I couldn't even resist after I got initiated. That started to show me, oh, this must be, not maybe must be, because it took me many years to come to that. Oh, maybe this really is actually what it says it is. For the really, it was the first like 3, 4, 5 years, I was like, maybe it is what it says it is, or maybe again, it's just my imagination. But it wasn't my imagination that so many things were changing in my life, that so many things were being revealed to me about who am I, and what do I really want, and how am I making my life decisions. And as I, for many, many years before I found the school, I lived in such a way that I always hoped that things, when I did a certain kind of either spiritual practice, or when I went to a different level of training, or when I entered into a new relationship or moved to a new place, that things would be different for me. And so I was always hoping, as I worked through my life and through myself, the challenges of life, that everyone is always being presented with different tests and challenges and life circumstances. And then after initiation, I just knew. I wasn't really hoping that things would be getting better. I'd always hoped they would get better. I'd always hoped that they would improve. I hoped I was on the right track. After initiation, it went from hoping to knowledge. I knew that I was on the right track. I saw the specific improvements in my life. I saw that when I made a new decision, it's like one doorway closed and a new doorway opened for me. And it was much, much, much more definitive than it was prior to initiation. So prior to initiation, if I, let's say I ended a relationship with someone, maybe I still thought about them for years afterwards. And maybe I still didn't really know how to let go. And maybe I wondered if I had made the right choice. And maybe many things. If I was working in a job, I was like, yeah, I don't know. Did I make the right decision? Is this the right place for me? And everyone has their own unique process. I'm just sharing what mine was. But after initiation, within a month or two, that had been wiped out. And I was like, no, this is what I'm doing. This is where I need to be. This is what I need to be focused on in my life right now. This is the right relationship that I'm in. This is the right person to be spending my time with right now. I had this whole new sense of self-assurance and confidence and knowledge about me and about my life that was totally undeniable. So just that started to convince me, there's something more with this lineage. And I don't really know exactly where it comes from. We say it comes from, many different things. We say this lineage comes from King Solomon. We say this lineage passed through the hands of many different people throughout eons and eons of time. But long before 3,000 years ago, and someone like King Solomon, and it's a very universal lineage. It's not a Jewish lineage specifically or a Christian lineage specifically. King Solomon was many things, but that's a huge long discussion about his history. But he was caretaking many different spiritual systems and wove them together into this one mystery school. Systems from all over the world, systems from different tribes and healers and religions and mystery schools and shamans were all put together into this one mystery school that we now have. And that was done by King Solomon about 3,000 years ago. So we say, in honor of all that work that he did, this is the lineage of King Solomon. And yet all those threads go long back before the mystery school was in its current form. So we don't really know how old it is. We say, mythologically speaking, that the essential keys of these initiations go back to the very first humans that were on Earth. And now, use your own imagination for your own mythology of what that means for the first humans on Earth, because some people believe humans came down from spaceships, and other people believe we evolved from apes, and some people believe God just placed us here 6,000 years ago, and some people, whatever you believe. But that at some point in the ancient, long prehistory past, humans somehow received, how? We don't know exactly, somehow received certain keys from higher beings of how to live a successful human life. And that those keys were given to the safekeeping of humans, and that over, maybe thousands, maybe millions of years, time unspecified, humans worked with those keys and refined them. And those keys were passed down and became the mystery school lineages that we have today.
Wow, absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing answer. And so with the keys, I mean, it sounds like there's a responsibility there. Like when you are initiated, when you receive these keys, would you say that there's a responsibility? And why wouldn't everyone be initiated? Why isn't everybody initiated?
Oh man, those get to really deep questions about the planet and who we are,
Yeah.
and what the kind of like what the human gain is.
Yeah.
Like what is the structure of human life? I mean, because there's a lot of questions in that, but let's focus first on, well, why isn't everyone initiated? Initiation's a choice. Initiation's a choice. Now, we are all human beings on planet Earth. Everyone is on a learning curve. So in a certain sense, Earth is like a school, if you would. It's like a mystery school, because there are many mysteries of life and death on Earth, regardless of whether you ever find a so-called mystery school. And the mysteries of life and death on Earth are more than enough for most people in their lives. Forget being initiated or any of that stuff. It's just life itself. You're born, that's an initiation. You get married, that's an initiation. You have kids, that's an initiation. Someone you know who love, someone who you love and who you know dies, that's an initiation. You graduate from college in a certain sense and you go out in the world, that's an initiation. You never graduate from any school and you have to get your GED and work really hard in 3 jobs and support your parents who are drug addicts, that's an initiation. Like there's all sorts of initiations that go on in life. So So when we think about, well, what is the mystery school? What is life on earth? Why isn't everyone initiated? Why wouldn't everyone be initiated? Initiation is a very specific way of uh, entering into and approaching your life. And it's not the normal human way of doing things. So the human way of doing things involves a certain kind of struggle and a certain kind of suffering. And that is the human condition on the planet. And we could debate for hours as to why that is. We could philosophize. We could look at all the different world religions and their teachings on that and say, well, why do humans suffer? And this is one of the most fundamental human questions that we have. Why do we suffer? And the mystery school has certain ways of talking about that I've always loved, that are very very non-judgmental. They're very non-religious and non-denominational. They just talk about energy, and they talk about the structure of human beings. And that's not something we can teach on a Zoom call, because that's part of the secrets of initiation. But nonetheless, we can all agree that human beings suffer, right? So when we look at our suffering as human beings, it's kind of set up for our learning in a certain sense, from one way of looking at it. Buddha, who is one of the great world teachers, said, life is suffering. And there are ways to bring about the cessation of suffering, and, taught about Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and as all different approaches within Buddhist traditions on how do you bring about the end of suffering. And that's obviously not an easy path. That's the path of becoming a Buddha. That's the path of bodhisattvahood. That's the path of walking through the ocean of suffering again and again and again, and finally attaining your full enlightenment and liberation and self-realization. And that's all true, and that's all beautiful and good. When we look at human suffering from the mystery school perspective, we keep it really, really simple as to why humans suffer. But basically, in some sense, humans are always struggling against what we know is good, beautiful, and true. It's like part of human nature to struggle and push against the things that would maybe be in our highest good. And some people might be a little heartbroken hearing that. So I say it very lovingly and as kindly as possible, but that is part of how humanity is set up, is to suffer. We're set up to walk away from the fullness and beauty and goodness and joy of who we are, so that we can have a contrasting experience. If you think of us as infinite and eternal beings who come here to the physical world, if you believe that, and mystery school would say that's part of the teaching, and that most spiritual systems would say that's part of the teaching, that we are infinite beings and we come to have this physical experience. And people have all different sorts of philosophies about what that physical experience means, like what is the meaning of life. But most spiritual systems that I've studied agree that we are not just physical. We are spiritual beings. We're having this physical experience. At some point when we die, we go somewhere else. Some systems say maybe you go to heaven. Some systems say maybe you go to hell. Hopefully not. Some systems say you go to other dimensions. Some systems say you study with your ancestors. Some systems say you study with plants and animals and spirit totems and the medicine of the earth. Some systems say you reincarnate and you come back here and you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. And whatever you believe of those is fine. The mystery school is not a religion that says like this is the truth. And that's something that always really drew me about it as well, because I studied many different religions and never found just one truth within all those religions and said, oh, this must be the way. And mystery school doesn't say, oh yeah, this is the one way. Nor do we even say this is the one teaching. There's many different teachings. There's many different ways of approaching the meaning of life, the origins of life, the destiny of life that we have as human beings. But we do get pretty specific and say that we suffer because we struggle against what we know is good. Why do we do that? Again, contrast. We're coming here to have contrast. We're coming here from that infinite experience. And that infinite experience, also, most spiritual systems that I've studied say is good, true, beautiful, bright, joyful, all the good things that we would associate with, paradise or heaven or something beyond the normal human condition. And that brings it right back to, well, the human condition is different than that higher reality. We're not in that infinite goodness reality. We're in a world of duality. We're in a world where you can have a good experience, you can have a bad experience. And there's something about how the human being is, it's like we're in training. It's like we're in school to learn about the difference between the good and the bad, the good and the evil, the light and the dark. We're here to learn about the choices that we make create our reality. And if you can't have choices and consequences, then how can you learn? How can you have any real knowledge accumulate inside of you if someone else is telling you, well, this is good and this is bad, right? And this is a human paradox and dilemma, because we want to live a good life. We want to be good people. That's built into us. That's built into the heart of every single human being on the planet. Every single human being I've ever met wants goodness. They want love. They want joy. They want peace. Even if they're super distorted, even if they have huge traumas, even if they're a psychopath, on some level, they have a desire to at least experience those things for themselves, that goodness and that love and that joy. Um, it might be distorted to the point of criminality. It might be distorted to the point of no return. Maybe that person really can't, that person is just a psychopathic murderer and they just have to be locked up, and that's a horrible state, but that happens on the planet sometimes. Again, philosophies aside, I'm not trying to like start debates about that, but just from what I can observe and what I think a lot of people in society can observe, like sometimes that seems to happen. And then we can scratch our heads from a higher idealistic level and say, well, why is this? And again, we bring it back without any sort of judgment of any individual or of any circumstance that's going on, and say, that's happening ultimately because humans come here and we have free will and we have the ability to make choices. And without choices and consequences, we wouldn't really learn anything. So how does that all relate to your question about, what is initiation? Why isn't everyone initiated? Why is initiation helpful or necessary? And, because initiation is a choice, it's only found by someone who's really, really ready for it. You might tune in with this podcast for a few minutes or even watch the whole thing and just have a knowing in your heart, like, that's not really for me. Whatever they're talking about, I'm not really interested in that. And that could be maybe even the majority of people listening to this podcast, even if they think, we seem like nice people and they can kind of relate to some of the things that we're saying. Initiation within the true ancient mystery school traditions is protected. It's a spiritual lineage that doesn't just appeal to the masses. It doesn't just appeal to everybody. It's something that the soul has to be really ready to take a certain level of responsibility for those choices we were talking about earlier. And when someone doesn't want that level of responsibility, initiation will not appeal to them. They will think it is either ridiculous, they will think it is not for them, they will think it sounds impossible, implausible, not believable. They'll think the person talking about it must be crazy or off their rocker. Why would you want to do something? Why would you spend money on that? Why would you bother wasting your time? Just live your life. You'll learn everything you need to learn. You'll learn from life. And that's in the mystery school would say, yeah, that's true. You will learn it from life. What kind of life? What kind of life do you want to have? And who is at the center of your life, creating your life? And if you really know and have already taken ownership of the fact that that's true, that's really you creating your life. And of course, in conjunction with all sorts of universal forces, God, source, whatever you want to call it. Yes, all that is also creating your life, but you're at the center of it, making choices. And so initiation comes down to a choice, and it comes down to the choice of how you want to live. And there's no initiation doesn't make life better for you. It makes life more, well, it can make life way better for you, but that's a choice also. It makes life more open to your knowledge and the knowledge of how you want to live, the knowledge of who you really are. And then with that knowledge, then you make your life better.
Yeah, I'm hearing in what you're saying, a level of awareness is results from these initiations. And I've heard people talk about the light and, being connected to the light and letting that in and what that actually means. And so it sounds like when you have that awareness, you have a responsibility then to, it's not just life is happening to you. It's like, I am the creator in life. I am consciously making these choices. And perhaps some people don't want that level of freedom or responsibility. But for the ones that do, and this is what I want to ask you next is, what becomes possible when people are choosing from that level of awareness? And maybe you can share a little bit about your own journey or other people you've seen on the path that you've guided. I mean, you're high level guide. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of amazing journeys on this path.
So I'm not sure if I'm totally understanding your question. Can you phrase that maybe a little differently?
Yeah, what is possible for people when they are choosing
Mhm.
consciously from that level of awareness that they receive from initiation?
What is possible for people when they choose from that higher level of awareness? I don't even really know how to answer or where to start, because uh, the testimonials and the experiences are so diverse. But I can say some common themes. One of the common themes, as people start to realize and harness and cultivate that awareness for themselves, is freedom. Feeling like they have more freedom to choose, like we talked about initiation as a choice. Feeling like, freedom's a hard thing to talk about because it means something different for each person. Um, but for a lot of people, freedom gives them a sense of peace.
Hmm.
It gives them the ability to feel themselves, to feel like they are in control of their own lives, to feel that the emotions or the thoughts that held them back from experiencing life the way they wanted to experience it, that those are increasingly over time more and more clarified and released and healed, so that they can, um, again, comes back to choice, they can make better choices. Initiation, when we say initiation is all about knowing thyself, knowing who you really are, it's that knowledge. It's like, what do you do with it? So what? So I know who I am. I know that I'm eternal and infinite and spiritual, and so what? Like, who cares? I was talking with someone about this the other day, and she was asking how you get to that point of knowing who you are, and I was like, well, it really takes practice. It takes doing the work, and it's a very practical thing in the mystery school. Whereas in a lot of other spiritual systems, it's more of a philosophical experience, or it's more of just a purely internal experience. In the mystery school, we say once you get to a certain level of self-knowledge with yourself, it's important to share that with other people, and important um, to help someone else on their path as well. And everyone does that differently. You just recently went to Healers Academy. There's tools in the school for people who feel called to that, to help others as well, like the life activation, which is usually the first session that most people would receive doing this work. If they were to meet a practitioner in the mystery school, that's usually what they would do first, would be have a life activation. So what do people do with this awareness? How do people move forward with this awareness? For myself, after I first got initiated, I quit my job. I'm not saying that was the best decision at the time, but it's what I chose to do. And I traveled a lot, and I went out to California, and I spent a lot of time camping and hiking. And I came back to Boston a few months later, and I was like, whoa, I need to totally recreate my life. I the way I've been living has not really served me. It's been good up to now, but I realized, and I was 25, so everyone is at different phases in their life when they get initiated, and I was at a phase where I just was ready to tear down what I had build something totally new. I'm not sure if we ever built something totally new, by the way, but I felt like it was going to be totally new. I it was very different than what I had built before. Um, and then by the time I was maybe 3 years into being initiated, my life was really completely different than what I had before. I couldn't even remember what it felt like in 2005, which is when I got initiated. When I look back, and so I got initiated summer 2005. By fall 2008, I was living a totally different life. So much more fulfilled, so much more on track with who I really am, so much more confident in my own abilities, my own gifts. It's like I had somehow over those 3 years learned about not only myself and my connection, although I'd done that for many years prior to the mystery school through spiritual tools. Somehow I had also learned a lot about people and business and um, marketing and connections and relationships. And I can't even tell you how I learned that stuff. It just became me. And the way that I am today is really nothing like I was 15 years ago. The way I am today is the way that it's so far beyond what I could have even hoped or dreamed that I would become, that I mean, when I was a teenager, I thought I'd be dead by the time I was 26. I don't mean because I was a super self-destructive teenager. I wasn't at all. I was mostly like meditating and doing yoga and like massaging my friends and, reading books on like meditation and hypnosis and self-development and that sort of thing. So I wasn't like, oh, I think I'm going to off myself or like overdose or something like that when I'm in my 20s. I just literally felt like I couldn't see beyond my mid 20s, like it didn't exist. That I would get to a certain point and then I wouldn't even want to be around anymore. And that time came and went, and I realized, no, I do want to be here, and I do want to I'm not just here for myself. Basically, like when I was born and I came to this life, I had a desire to serve, but mostly I just wanted to like learn what I needed to learn and honestly like get the heck off this planet. I didn't really want to stick around for that much of life. I knew I wanted to have a lot of joy. I wanted to experience love and joy and goodness, but the time came and passed when I thought I would not be here anymore. And I decided, no, I'm really here to serve others in a much bigger way. So that was like 14 years ago and still here.
Yeah. What is the day in the life of a guide? What is
Huh.
that like?
Different, totally different each day, because I wake up and, in the mystery school, we hand down certain tools of power that are for structuring your energy. We work with sacred geometry, we work with sacred words and sounds for being able to connect with really energy of what's needed in that moment and to create what we desire in that moment. So, I start my day off with those tools, those rituals, with meditation, and connect with what I need to do that day. Now, that sounds really, really flighty and proofy. Yes, I have a schedule, I have a calendar, I see clients, I run a business, we do podcasts. There's a lot of things that go into that. But a day in my life, really, so much of what makes it sacred is like how I start it and how I really set the energy and the tone for myself each day to take charge of my life. And then each day I try to do just one thing. This is not a mystery school teaching. This is just what I do. I try and do just one thing that I will move me forward in some way in my life toward what I really want to be doing. This podcast is an example. I've wanted to do this for years. I knew I needed to do it for years. It took me many years to get to this point to feel like I was ready to do it, because I knew I needed to offer a certain kind of energy to the world. And everything we do in the mystery school is about energy, because it's easy to get on a podcast and talk about your personal opinions, your personal feelings about something. And of course, we're talking about that here, but I had to be able to deliver something else on an energetic level that I can't even put into words for myself, much less say on camera to somebody else. There's something about what we're doing with this podcast that just needs to happen right now. It's the right thing at the right time. And so here it is. It's been the result or the byproduct of many years of effort, of self-effort. I don't mean it took me years to discover like what microphone or what laptop to use. None of that. That's all done in an instant when you really make the decision about what you want to share. So imagine like for yourself with singing, that didn't come about overnight. Like many, many years of training, many, many years of effort went into the development of your voice, the development of your knowledge of yourself and your singing, to all your abilities with music and the training that went into making music and into singing. I was also trained as a singer, not to the level that you are, I don't believe, but I know a lot of the stuff that goes in with, at least I was classically trained in singing for many years growing up, all the way up through the beginning of college. And there's a lot of intention, and it builds up over time. So, you take different acts each day, like you warm up your vocal cords as a singer, you show up at a rehearsal. Maybe, maybe you're a composer, you're composing, you're writing music. You don't write a piece of music in just one day, at least not if it's a beautiful multi-part piece of music. So there's the life of a guide is always focused on service. And the service starts with service to self, and that expands to service to others and service to the world and service to God or source or the light or goddess. And then that growing curve toward what you're really supposed to be doing in your life tracks with the path of initiation. So You go to your first step initiation, you go to Healer's Academy, you go to Guide, you step onto the warrior path, you have 3 initiations there, you take Kabbalah many times. And by the time you get to Guide and the equivalent initiation on the warrior path, and you've done Kabbalah many times, your energy is extremely focused on this is the mission, this is what I'm doing. And the joy of life comes from your own connection with yourself. It doesn't come from circumstances. It doesn't come from just, the people around you, or whether somebody likes you, or whether you said the right thing or did the right thing. It comes from your sense of connection with who you really are. And that joy can't ever be taken away, and it can't be replaced by anything, but it's always progressing forward. As a guide, even as any higher initiate in the mystery school, but especially as a guide, which is sort of the highest level of responsibility, which is to bring someone else into their own understanding of themselves as an eternal being. That's what a guide does. A guide takes a person from not truly knowing who they are as an infinite and eternal being. Everyone knows who they are on a human level in some way, or most people do. But taking them through that gateway of initiation into true self-knowledge of this is who you are as an eternal being. And that process easily takes at least 10 years of coming from human to infinite being, and knowing yourself as that. We say, I am an eternal being. When I first heard that in the mystery school, I was like, yeah, sure, I'm an eternal being. I believe that philosophically. And then at least 10 years until I was like, oh no, I really know that that's true for myself. And I live that. And that's what I fully embody every day. So again,
Wow.
I don't know if we range too far afield from your question there.
Oh, not
We're
at
like
all.
almost done with the
I
interview.
know this
How did
just
that
flew
happen?
by. I mean, there's so much. I don't want to add my own interpretations to everything you're saying,
Sure.
because everybody listening here is going to receive their own wisdom and insight. And something that I just love and resonate so much with about these teachings is that it does encourage people to express their unique, authentic selves, their infinite being, and it's going to be, unique for each person. So I know for me, I'm receiving so much from listening to this,
Hmm.
and it's supporting me and having focus and clarity on what I want to create, how I want to structure my energy, and just knowing that that's available and there are practical tools that you can apply in your life has given me so much empowerment.
Yeah.
So I thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, and following the path and being of service, and structuring your energy in the way that you have, so that you can
Yeah.
offer this to people. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I can't believe it's like more than 45 minutes we've been talking. I was like,
I
yeah,
know.
probably 15 minutes. I haven't even looked at the time. I'm thinking, when am I going to get to ask Rush some questions here? And now we're done.
No,
So
it's about something that's so much bigger. So
yeah,
yeah, it's perfect.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. This is ongoing series. It's going to go on for a long period of time. So hopefully I'll get a chance to bring you on again, Rush, and interview you as you progress on this path and
Yeah,
learn more about your experiences with this work. So
absolutely. If that could be of service to share my own experiences, I would welcome the opportunity to do that. But
perfect. I
in
wish
the
we had time tonight.
meantime, I know. In the meantime, I've been really enjoying the other episodes. Each one is full of wisdom. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Rush, for making this possible and for this idea in the first place to interview me and get some of these answers flowing. So hope you all tune in again next week, and we will talk to you and see you soon. Take care.
Bye.